Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mark Goldbridge. That's football. It's the Premier League wrap. It's the Premier League weekend wrap, and we're going to be talking about the Premier League that's just gone ahead. And look, let's start off with Manchester United. Are Manchester United back on top? Are they back as title contenders in this Premier League season after a 4-0 win over Chelsea at Old Trafford? And the big, quick answer is, of course not. Of course they're not. Let's be real. Let's be absolutely real here. Manchester United are not title contenders, much the same as Arsenal are not title contenders after a good win at Newcastle. Much the same as Spurs are probably not title contenders despite coming back and winning well against Aston Villa yet. The reality is that Manchester City annihilated West Ham and Liverpool were very comfortable against Norwich. And I cannot see that the consistency of those two teams is going to deteriorate so much that it's going to allow teams such as Arsenal, United, and maybe even Spurs to get into the race, or Chelsea. And you know what I'll say this because that's football, and on that's football. Yes, I support Manchester United, but I do watch a lot of other football, and I'll always be honest about it. And I think that with regards to Chelsea, I was very, very, very impressed with Chelsea, and I know Chelsea. I've given Chelsea a lot of stick, especially Eden Hazard. Over the years, and Chelsea fans probably won't take any comfort in me saying that I was impressed with them when they've just been annihilated 4-0 by United. But I was impressed with them. I thought that the way they moved the ball around, their midfield was very impressive from Ross Barkley, Jorginho. I don't know what Jose Mourinho was on about. I mean, he's obviously had a big whole, a family pack of bitter pills and swallowed them all because to criticise Mason Mount, who I thought was very impressive. Yeah, he faded, but that's going to happen. I don't think he faded because United figured him out. I think it was just a bit of fatigue. But I thought the way Chelsea moved the ball around was great. I think Chelsea's problem is going to be who's going to put that ball in the back of the net. Tammy Abraham had a good shot, but to be fair, he had a shot from the edge of the box, and a striker of his quality he should be shooting that on target. But apart from that, I just think that Tammy Abraham's a championship striker, and if I get proved wrong, I get proved wrong. But I think he's a championship striker, and I think that their defence is also somewhat suspect. So I think that's where Frank Lampard's going to struggle this year. And already you'd maybe concerned if you're a Chelsea fan about, are you going to be fighting for fifth and sixth? But it's early days, and I'll bring it back to Manchester United. And are United title contenders? Of course, we're not. We're not. I think United, over a 38 game season, that midfield has got to improve a lot, and it can improve a lot, but it's a midfield that for large portions of that game today were played off the park. Pogba, McTominay and Pereira, they're all players that I like and United fans like, but they were played off the park at times today. And I think if Chelsea had an attack, look, I think if that's Man City today, United might get beat 3 or 4-0. I think if that's Liverpool, they might get beat 3 or 4-0. And I know that sounds very defeatist, but and it's very unfair against De Gea in that back four who played very well. But United's midfield weren't picking up the runners. And it doesn't matter how good your back four is, they're going to give chances away if they've got people breaking on them off the midfield because they can't mark everybody. So United, but the thing about United is it's a step forward, and I think that's where people are not grasping this. It's a step forward, and they need to grow from that. And confidence is a big thing. And you just look at next week's fixtures, because I want to do that with all these people. You look at next week's fixtures. United go to Wolves a week tomorrow night, Monday Night Football. That's going to be a big test. Chelsea entertain Leicester. So it'll be interesting to see whether the confidence that United get from this result against Chelsea, can they take that confidence into a difficult game against Wolves and get a result? And Chelsea, can they take their good performance but terrible result into a tough game against Leicester at Stamford Bridge and produce a victory? Because I think Leicester will quite fancy that game. Drawing with Wolves today, I think that's a good point for Wolves, and it's a good point for Leicester because they're both similarly ranked teams, and I would have been surprised if either of those teams had beaten each other comfortably. So I think that they'll definitely be a test for Chelsea next week, and it's a big test for Chelsea. And what I would say about Lampard is I've seen Lampard's Chelsea and Derby team come to Old Trafford twice in the last sort of 9 months, and I was impressed by his Derby side and I was impressed by his Chelsea side, but you can only do what you can. And at Chelsea, they do sack managers, so he's got to be a bit careful. Jay Legend says Liverpool couldn't beat a 9-man United team last season. They dropped points at Old Trafford again. Well, Liverpool go to Southampton next week, and I think Liverpool against Norwich. Norwich were a little bit naive as one of the new boys. I think when you look at the new boys, Sheffield United did very well to get a point yesterday at Bournemouth and deserved it. Aston Villa, look, I was so impressed with Aston Villa yesterday against Spurs. I thought first half, the way they set up, the way they broke, John McGinn was fantastic and Villa were fantastic in the first half. And then the second half, what we were talking about at half time on the watch along on this channel. Please do subscribe to the channel, by the way. We're going to do Spurs Man City next Saturday at 5:30, which we'll talk about in a minute. But Villa just faded. That inexperience of the Premier League, that inability to go for 90 minutes at that tenacity really cost them. And Spurs came back and got the win. But Villa next week at home to Bournemouth. That's the sort of thing that Villa have just got to take the confidence out of that result against Spurs and go and work again hard against Bournemouth. But Liverpool go to Southampton next week. Southampton surprisingly stuffed by Burnley, and Liverpool will fancy that as another 3 points, and you'd expect Liverpool to get another 3 points there, but I don't know. I think Liverpool are going to do one or two things this year. They're either going to go very hyper consistent again in the quest for a league, or maybe they will start to drop some silly points. Man City, I can't see Man City changing, to be honest, but what a result for Burnley against Southampton. And also, with regards to Burnley beating Southampton, they then go to Arsenal next week, who got a good result against Newcastle today. I would have expected Arsenal to beat Newcastle today. I had my eye on the game. I don't know that they picked the team that I thought they would. I didn't see Pepe, but maybe I missed that. But they got the win, and Arsenal fans will be very happy with that because their away form last season was shocking. So to get that 1-0 win will be good. And then obviously Burnley next week, you'd expect them to win that. 6 points, start of the season. They'll be happy with that. Newcastle should have done better, says Mr. A. Arsenal looking shaky at the back. And Pepe came on with 10 minutes to go, says Alex Trube. So good result for Arsenal. And I would expect them to build on that against Burnley. And as I said, momentum and confidence is very important at the start of the season for teams that are going into an uncertain season. And I think Arsenal, good summer, but, they're always uncertain, the Arsenal fans, and that's a good start for them. Chelsea, they'll be worried. They'll be worried because, they played well, but you want the points. And United got a bit of confidence there. Spurs, Villa, just going back to that for a moment. Spurs had a number of players missing yesterday that are going to add a lot to that team. You think about it, Dele Alli's injured, but they've got the new signings in Sessegnon, Lo Celso to come back in. Vertonghen didn't even get picked. Son was suspended. Adding, Eriksen was a bench player. If Eriksen stays and all those players come back, Spurs have got a very, very, very good team. But didn't Spurs lose 10 games last year? So it's an interesting one for Spurs, a very important game to win yesterday. I mean, look, I would love Spurs to win the title over Liverpool and Man City because Liverpool are our United's biggest rival and Man City, it's oil money, isn't it? So I would like Spurs to win the league. But if Spurs have got any aspirations of winning the league, they couldn't drop points against Villa yesterday. And they did what they did last season a lot. Towards the end of the games, they're very strong. They worked hard and they got, they did, I felt for Villa, but I also felt from Spurs. They never stopped going and they're experienced and, that never say die attitude works well for them. And of course, they've got a full season in their new ground for the first time in a few years now. So it'd be interesting to see what he does, what they do, Spurs. Yasser HS says Lampard's out of his depth. Well, of course he is. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's out of his depth. They're naturally out of their depth because they're inexperienced. It's not even a criticism to say they're out of depth. They're being chucked in the deep end, and it's whether they can swim. Not everybody's going to be a success. Solskjaer, Lampard, Steven Gerrard, they're not all going to be a success. They might be, but the chances are that, maybe only one of them will be. So it's going to be interesting how it works. Man City play Spurs next weekend, which I'm already can't wait for that because it's almost too soon, actually. I thought Chelsea United, it isn't too soon because neither of us are going to win the league and neither of us are probably going to finish in the top three. So yeah, Chelsea United, probably a little bit early in the season to have it as an opening game, but it is what it is. I think Spurs Man City's a little bit early because I really do think that those two teams could be title contenders. So to play so soon, it's a little bit of a shame. It's obviously at the Etihad. You'd put City as very, very firm favourites, but I tell you what, if Spurs could go there and even get a draw, how great would that be? So I'm very excited about that. And I hope that we get a good game out of it. So yeah, Liverpool go to Southampton, Man City play Spurs, Chelsea host Burnley, Chelsea host Leicester, United against Wolves. Have I missed anybody out of the top six? No. So look, I'm very excited by the start to the season, and as a United fan, I was so disappointed with that transfer window. But to come out with that win today, 4-0, really, really good. What does it mean for Manchester United season? Very little, very little. I remember loads of opening day results. Like I remember Coventry going to Arsenal and winning, and Norwich going to Coventry and Norwich going to Arsenal and winning. It's the opening day of the season. Consistency is what gets you where you end up at the end of in May. And I look at United's midfield and I still have massive concerns about it. I think, how is that midfield going to be good enough over a whole season? And I don't know whether it will be. So United have got a very good result today. I think the 4 goals is a real bonus. Clinical performance from Manchester United. Wasteful performance from Chelsea. That's the contrast. Chelsea can have no complaints. They had more shots. They didn't score any goals. United took their chances. So I'm just going to take United's season step by step, and I think that's what a lot of teams are going to do. I think if you're a Liverpool fan or you're a Man City fan, you don't do it step by step. You have expectations, and them expectations are based on evidence of what you've done over the last few years. So they'll be looking to win every game every week. From United's point of view, we want to win every week, but every week it's a challenge. We've lost games to Huddersfield and Newcastle and Cardiff, so United can lose any game. But Wolves will be interesting next week, and it'll be a big challenge. And Wolves, after drawing with Leicester, will not want to drop more points at home to United. Wolves will be a different test completely, but today was a very big positive. We cannot play it like we did the first half, though. That was awful, says Tom Wade. Yeah, Tom, there was very little difference between United's last season end and the way we started the game. We were knocked out. So I started watching Sky Sports because of Jose Mourinho. He was a disaster at Manchester United, but he's still Jose Mourinho, says Mike Townley. I got no interest in Jose Mourinho. I've got no interest in Jose Mourinho. I think Chelsea fans would feel the same as well. Apparently, Jose Mourinho had a go about Mason Mount as well. I mean, I don't really know what he's on about, but he's a bitter man, and he always wants to be number one. And Sky Sports have made a good move by paying him lots of money to go on their channel, but I've got no interest in him. He failed at Manchester United, and that, to me, that makes his opinion irrelevant. I've said it, but it's not just because it's Jose Mourinho. I've heard David Moyes talk about United over the last 6 years. Not interested, mate. You had your chance, you blew it. You're not a United fan, do one. Same with Van Gaal, you blew it. Not really interested in what you've got to say. If you've got something to say about the board, I'll listen, because that's an insight into working under our board. But talking about our players or how we play, you've forfeited that chance when you blew it. Do you think United will get a result from Wolves? It's early days, mate. I think what United have got to do is build on that performance and take confidence from it. There's some really, really good performances there. Wan-Bissaka just looks fantastic, doesn't he? And Harry Maguire is going to be consistent. David De Gea seems to have found his focus. I don't know whether that's the captaincy or his future being sorted out, but that's really important. The midfield's going to be the issue for United, because I do think that Rashford and Martial and Lingard and Greenwood and Daniel James, I think that they will do fine if they're given the opportunities, but the midfield has to be the catalyst to that. And when you look at United's performance today, Pereira didn't play that well. McTominay was okay. Pogba was okay. But they're going to have to be better than okay for a lot of this season, because, who's waiting? Matic, great. I would like to have seen Fred on the bench today. Teams which play line will be difficult for us, says Saurabh Chowdhury. Yeah, that's tactically a very, very good point. United did well today because they, Chelsea were pressing and moving the ball high up the pitch, and that allowed us to hurt them on the break. Maguire was my man of the match, Smutty. I think he was voted man of the match as well. Wolves equals payback time, says Ultra67. Great win today, Mark, says AAB. I'm scared that we could get carried away too soon, says Adhava Tanpure. And if Pogba will keep the ball too long today against Wolves, he will cost us the game, says Yuri Sama. But look, we are talking about the Premier League. It's the Premier League wrap on this channel. Make sure you subscribe if you're new, and smash a like on the video. But look, for a Premier League weekend, I must admit I came into it as a United fan, still on a hangover of the transfer window, still very disappointed. And I think a lot of people came into the Premier League opener full of excitement, like you normally are. But as a United fan, I was just, I'm still really annoyed about that transfer window, and I didn't get that excited. But looking at it now, we've won 4-0. That's fantastic. And I really did enjoy that Spurs Villa game yesterday. I can't say that enough. I thought it was a cracking game. Thinking of, I've not even mentioned it, and I don't really talk about these teams because they're irrelevant. They're either going to get relegated or they're going to get mid-table, which is irrelevant either. But I thought Brighton's performance against Watford yesterday was fantastic. Brighton are my tip to go down with Sheffield United and Norwich, and to go to Watford, who are a team that I actually thought might be a team competing for like 7th and 8th again. Go there and win 3-0. They must be doing something right, and maybe Brighton are going to be a surprise package, because I sort of wanted Brighton to go down after their treatment of Chris Hughton, but that could be a flash in the pan as well. That's why you've got to be very careful if you're a United fan like me, because beating Chelsea 4-0 is great, but these results can happen as an isolated incident, and Brighton going to Watford and winning 3-0 could be an isolated incident. So we'll see how it goes. I remember when United used to be winning titles, and sometimes you'd have teams like Villa or Leicester at the top of the league after 4 or 5 games. The league doesn't start to sort itself out probably till like October anyway, so it's how we go. I thought Norwich played well as well. Routledge 1-2-3, 2-2-5. I thought Norwich did play well, and I think the challenge for Sheffield United and Norwich and Aston Villa is not what you do against Liverpool or Man City. It's what you do against Bournemouth and Newcastle. If you can get results in those games, then you're going to give yourself a good chance of getting to 40 points and staying up. And I thought Sheffield United did well yesterday, but let's also remember, and this is the same for United, it's the same for any team, starting the season off with a lot of energy and a lot of positivity is easy. Have you got that energy when it becomes relentless in October and November time, when you're playing Wednesday, Saturday, or Thursday, Sunday? That's when it will start to grab you. And that's when it starts to grab teams like Norwich and that, when they maybe lose 4 or 5 games in a row and you start to fall into a groove. Because that's what happens. Everybody, I remember this for years. You'd be sat there in the summer. Everton will buy a load of players. Somebody else will buy a load of players. And they're going to be a competitor this season. They've got really good players coming in. And maybe they start well, but then they all fade into the normal groove of being around the mid-table. That's what it's all about. Arsenal defeated well for once away, says Samuel Morrison. They did. It's a good result for Arsenal. I've already said that. We need that type of energy throughout the entire season, says Does East Gaming, which is very hard to do, especially when you start to get injuries and loss of form. I'm still waiting for my ban, says Kylian Mbappe. How are you feeling, my man? Mark says, Dear Assam Masala. I'm very good. Very good, actually. Very, very pleased with United. Looking forward to watching Match of the Day 2 later. All the fan cams are flying in on the United stand at the moment, so I can't do my 8 o'clock show. Always do an 8 o'clock show. Can't do an 8 o'clock show because the fan cams are coming in. But there you go. I'm very intrigued by City versus Spurs, says Rafael Sagidis. Well, join me at 5:30 next Saturday, because I will be doing a watch along for that, and I'm very intrigued by it as well. I thought Martial at number 9 was fantastic, yes. And United's squad depth will be a problem. I think squad depth is going to be a problem for everybody. And the teams that have been successful in recent years are the teams with the biggest squads. Like Man City have got a huge squad. Last summer, not this summer, Klopp went out and bought a load of players and solved his squad issues. And this summer, surprise, surprise, Poch has gone and done the same. Because 2 years ago, Liverpool had a good team, but if someone got injured or wasn't playing well, he goes to the bench and he's not really got quality there. Last season, he goes to the bench, he's got quality there. Last season, Spurs got a good team, but when they lose the players for injury, the squad becomes bare. This season, he can look at the bench and go, I've got this quality, that quality. So that's what Spurs have done. That's what Liverpool have done, and City have had it for years. Can United, Chelsea and Arsenal do the same? That's probably where they're behind. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching. Premier League Wrap Weekend show. We'll try and do this as often as we can do. Trying to do more content on here. Got the FIFA career mode starting this week, and obviously doing the watch along. So please do smash a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, and enjoy your weekend. My thoughts on Allison's injury for Liverpool is I don't know how long it's going to be, but I think they can deal with it. It's not ideal, but I think they can deal with it. I think Adrian's a good goalkeeper, and I liken it to Manchester United's situation with De Gea. If De Gea got injured, it'd be a big loss. But Romero's no mug; he could come in and do a job. So 2 months without Allison, I think they can cope. But we'll see. Thanks for watching. Speak to you all soon.